Jay, at what point should a staffing owner even consider outsourcing functions of their business?
Honestly, I think just to start an outsourcing, they can actually start anywhere, from a new company who's like, hey, I'm a one-man shop and I want to add some extra man hours or leverage because I'm all by myself. Mm-hmm. Outsourcing can be a turnkey system today. Like, hey, I need some sourcing for just a couple hours. Turn it on for a month and then you can turn it off. One of the things you see in today's economy is biz dev's a problem, right? Everyone's trying to get in front of clients. One of the things we're seeing a lot of people outsourcing today is appointment setting, because it is time consuming, right? You are spending hours a day of just calling, but you're not getting appointments, right? You can dial, I think the staffing was dial 100 times a day and you're probably going to get 10 connections out of the day at best.
Yeah.
And maybe one meeting, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of time consuming as a business owner. So I think it's always good to, hey, look at your business and where I need outsource. One of the other sides I see is time. If you're doing timekeeping attendance, collecting time cards is a pain in the butt, right?
Yeah.
This is where we have, I see people in our staff, in our team, we have it is where we have an onboarding team and they're checking candidate. They're calling, hey, it's Friday. Hey, Brad, just want to let you know, today's your, end of the day. Please submit your hours so that we can make sure you get paid on time for next week. And come Monday, they look at the list and they're just reaching out and it's a person versus an automation. I think that's the power of outsourcing there, is that difference.
Interesting. So at what point do you go from internalizing that and saying, okay, we'll get an intern or we'll get somebody who is a junior level employee, and maybe that term, I mean that respectfully. Yeah. You going from somebody like that to, let's just offshore this. We can do this somewhere else. And how do you make that distinction?
I think it's a distinction of how you're going to scale it up in your organization, right? Okay. I think that's the difference, right? When I hear hiring interns internally, my goal is to give you some experience in our organization, and hopefully you have a path forward to maybe move into recruiting, maybe move into biz dev.
Got it.
Maybe you're part of our operational team. But if you're in the business mind of, hey, my business is functioning and this is a necessity, I don't expect someone to, quote unquote, move up in this role.
Yeah.
This is where you outsource it, because that is the role.
I love that, because I think in a lot of internships, even some that I've been a part of, you're sort of doing those C and D level tasks that no one else wants to do. But to your point, Jay, there's no sign of where you're going to go next. So saying, okay, this function still needs to be done, we can kick it over here and it can still get done from somebody else. I love that thought. And I love that train of thought and process. Jay, how did you get into the outsourcing mindset? So I know a little bit about your background. Share that with our listeners. How did you get into that thought?
Yeah, so everyone felt the impact of the Great Recession. And one of the things we saw was our team was spending so much time and effort looking at resumes versus making calls out day. Like the premise of a recruiter's day is I need to interact with candidates, not to get paid to look at resumes. So we heard outsourcing was starting to pick up in India, was kind of the first scale of doing that. And so we did a pilot program with a trusted partner. And we love the model. We love that, hey, you can either walk in today and be like, I have a list of candidates who are screened and here's where I make the calls, or you have the vice versa. The other option was you make the calls and, hey, they're scheduled you for today. And so it was a great model. The negative we had was the candidate feedback we got is, because we're trying to build trust relationship, was I hated when someone said their name was Bob and I know their name isn't Bob. It really diluted the trust factor we're trying to build for our culture and our candidate experience we're trying to run with in Amtech. And so what happened was my business partner, his brother, was a FedEx pilot, and he literally goes, hey, Jay, I heard you're doing this outsourcing thing in India. I know you're Filipino. That's the newest outsourcing hub that's starting. Yeah. I'm like, really? And I've never been to the Philippines since I was 12 years old. So I'm like, I have no clue what this country looks like, and even though being a Filipino. And we take a flight to the Philippines, and we say, wow, this is really a thing. And we buy a 5-person call center and we teach them how to recruit from there. And just an amazing culture of that where, 2008, we started this with 5 people. And today, almost 15, 16 years now, we're over 100 staff. And
wow.
Just a crazy amount of growth over the years. And I lived out there for a couple of years to build the culture and leadership that needed to help run the organization there. And that's a lot of, sacrifice where I think not everyone is able to do that. And I've been fortunate to have that kind of life and career to do this and, get to live in 2 sides of the world.
I was going to ask you for a success story, and I think you already gave it to us, but to go from a 5-person outsourced function to now I think you said a team of over 100, that's incredible. And to be able to scale your business and scale your business functions as a result of that opened up so many doors for you. What is, in your mind, the biggest impact of being able to do something like that?
The impact, honestly, is just the people, right? You think about just the third world country that you get to create middle class. The traditional workforce of talent is, you've got 80, 90% graduation rate of nursing, engineering, accounting, business, and they don't have enough jobs locally. And what would happen is you graduate and you leave to a different country and you become an overseas worker. And so you end up sending me back home. I've got to see how pretty much a city is built on outsourcing where, wow, you look at a vacant lot, but all of a sudden, wow, there's 100 skyscrapers just got built over these 15 years and go, oh, look, there's, Uber's next door, American Express is there, Amazon's next door to us now, and I'm like, everyone's doing it. It's pretty amazing to watch that and just to have the impact in culture in the Philippines. But from a U.S. standpoint, I'm a big advocate of using the outsourced talent because I think using outsourcing doesn't mean, I'm losing people's jobs. I think that's what the biggest fear when they say I'm going to outsource, you're going to take away American jobs. No, what we're doing is actually enhancing the American job to be more purposeful, more strategic. No one wants to, quote unquote, I hate to say it this way, do the grunt work, right? That's the part of it. And I think that's where this evolution of time is where you can take a recruiter, be more strategic, be more impactful with the candidate experience, have your biz dev team focus on account management, building relationships, and using outsourcing as a function to enhance your ability. And I think from the Philippine side, they love the work. They are very task oriented. They feel the purpose that, wow, I get to work with a U.S. organization. I get to be part of a culture that's both Westernized and Philippines. And that's a pretty cool experience for anyone who's doing outsourcing. I think when you engulf that, it just changes everything. And the world is small. I think that's one of the funniest things now. The way technology is, it just makes it 10 times smaller.
I had Trisha Tamkin on a while ago, and for that conversation, we talked about AI and the implications of AI. And her whole methodology was, how can AI help me in insert task here? And in a roundabout way, I'm hearing a lot of the same things from you, Jay. It's, how can outsourcing help me in insert task here? And it's not to say that we're going to lose jobs in America. It's we're going to elevate the current jobs that we already have. And I can see that firsthand from an AI standpoint in my day-to-day. There are things that I absolutely want to punt that I know I need to do. They sit on my desk and I know I need to do these things, but I don't want to do them. So we find ways to go about that, right? So that I can elevate the role that I have and have different conversations with clients or individuals like yourselves. It's the exact same thing. From what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. I think it's a combination of people and technology, right? I think one of the things I think outsourcing is going to elevate is, with being such the new thing, is how do I use AI, right? I think, I've sat in on your conversations, like, how do I prompt well, right? Like, some people are like, maybe this is not the skill that takes the time, but why don't I have a little, like, a outsourced marketing team? Hey, build me prompts to help us do email campaigns. Your time as an owner or executive of a staffing company is you can dictate these kind of things I want and let a team build that for you. And I think that's the part where I think that's AI and outsourcing is going to be a new combination, and it's going to be a powerful machine for the future of staffing.
How do you maintain company culture when you have people working internally in an office and then you have an outsourced arm that also supports your office?
Yeah. One of the things that most people hate that I do this is I'm a big in-office person, and I believe in culture, and I believe in
what's that
camaraderie. Right? That's usually it's such a funny thing where they're like, yeah, I'm like, and when you look at an office, I don't think many people have been in an office where there's 100 staff, and it's mind-boggling to see a floor with just all this talent and camaraderie that's being built, right? And so I think from US to outsources, Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, whatever you're using, whatever you do at a day-to-day, they should be included, right? Any kind of team or stand-up meeting, bring them in on it. Bring them in on those conversations. Have them responsible for some of their KPIs and metrics that they have to report to. That starts like camaraderie. They get to see each other's face. They kind of, we use EOS, and so part of we do level 10s every week, and our team, the outsourced team, is a part of the level 10s, and you start off with, personal best, business specs, and that connects so much just right there, right? Because got to hear about your personal life, and I heard about a success about business. That's the most easiest. The second is just when you do events. If you do an event in the US, that lets we have EOS again, Q2 state of the company. We do that as a whole, and then we have a team event after, right? And so we do the same thing. Hey, even though you can't be with us here in the US, your team in the Philippines will also have a team event, and we try to intertwine that as much as possible. The Philippines loves events, to be fair, and so they constantly do things 10 times better than we do, in fairness, because budget's easier. So,
what? I apologize. I started thinking about events, and I was going to go down a path. Yes, time zones. And sorry for getting lost there for a second. When we think time zones and pulling those outsourced team members into team meetings, I'm East Coast, right? So right now, for me, at time of recording, it's 1:22. I'll be completely transparent. I don't know what time it is in the Philippines. I could look that up quickly. But let's say I were to have an L10 right now. Do you expect those team members to also be on those calls, or are you strategically planning your team meetings around, I guess, a global time zone? How does that work?
So I think it depends on the way your outsourced model works. For us, we have multiple clients from the East Coast to Central to the Pacific Standard. So we are working graveyard shift in the Philippines. So it is roughly, I think today's time zone is 15-hour difference. And so it is, I call it the vampire schedule, right? You've got to learn how to, if you're on the East Coast, you're in at 10 p.m. Philippine time so that you can have your level 10 with the East Coast representative or team that you're dealing with, or any client. I think there's the basis of how that business works, right? If it's client facing, you should always be on your time zone. I'm a big advocate of that, because that's the whole premise of outsourcing. Is it's an extension of my team, and they have the same email, have the same local dialing number. They know that I'm an extension of you, and that's the key of that. You have the other side of it where, hey, they're not client facing. They can work on Philippine day. Coordinate the schedule. So your level 10s are going to be late afternoon for you, early morning for them. And so it's a balance. It's all the balance of how your operation wants to work.
Okay. I appreciate that, being open and honest, having lines of communication, saying, listen, this time's not going to work because scheduling conflicts. I get that. I understand completely. Let's say somebody is listening right now and they're thinking, okay, Jay, I hear you. This has been on my mind for a while, but again, I don't know where to get started. What are maybe 2 or 3 areas that people could absolutely right now, regardless if you're a $1 million staffing agency or a $100 million staffing agency, you could get started with some of this methodology within the next couple of days?
Yeah. Easiest is, again, because we're RPO, BPO, recruitment. Recruitment is the easiest because we know today talent is hard to find. Start with a small project of, I need to build a talent pool for a client that may be ramping up, or I'm trying to do a re-engagement project. I want you to reach out to all of these candidates we have not touched in the last 90 days.
Sure.
Very simple to start today. And that is easy to build a list. It's easy to intertwine to your ATS. Probably the simplest. If you're from a finance side, again, I think another easiest one is, hey, I need someone to just help with collections. That's cash is king today, and everyone's like, hey, as times are getting tougher, have someone just making calls on collections for you, and that saves your accounting and payables people 10 times more time in their day to do something else that's more impactful.
Okay. And then on the client side of things, I would suspect to be a lot of BD activities as well, whether you're cold calling or prospecting or re-engaging your former client database. You mentioned this at the top of the call and the top of the conversation, but I'm hearing it left and right. I don't know who to call on. I can't get a conversation. I can't get a meeting. How great would it be if you're listening right now, if every morning you woke up to maybe 1 or 2 leads of people who were contacted the night before or previously by your outsourced team now are saying, listen, they're ready for a conversation. They're teeing up those leads for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think fantastic. Even the marketing stuff, like again, just the campaign, like email campaigns. I'm horrible. We're using, HubSpot. I'm like, we need to do a sequence. Here's the new batch of talent we need to reach out to, our client base that we're focusing on for a certain territory. Here, can you build a campaign, build it all up with the pipeline? Saves you tons of time personally versus you doing it yourself.
Jay, you said you've been doing this since about 2008, I believe you said. What is maybe one mistake that you've made along the way that you can share with us so that somebody doesn't make that same mistake going forward?
Lots of mistakes
if you want to share. If you want to share, of course.
I think the easiest is, the mistake is to assume the culture, right?
Okay.
Their westernized culture and not understanding the Philippine culture is probably the biggest problem, where you assume the way I interact with someone who is in the U.S. is actually not well received from an employee or a team member in the Philippines, because it is emotional intelligence. You've got to understand the culture, and you kind of, if you pretty much actually, I'd love me to thought, it's hard for them to say no, because there's such a customer service culture, and you as an American or offshore boss or something, you're their superior, so they'll never question you, and you want to give you want to teach them to be like, hey, I want you to be an active listener. I want you to have an opinion, and it's not heard of for them. Okay. And you go, okay, think about this. Like, it's okay. You can make a mistake. You're okay to have the ability to go, I don't understand, or I did something wrong. That was the hardest start for me in the beginning. There was, boy, everyone's saying, I got it. I understand. Yeah. I understand how to do a search string. Oh, we just did a whole training on our ATS. I understand how I could do it by myself. And then next thing you know, 1 hour later, they're talking to a team member. I don't understand what he said.
Yeah. I like that a lot, Jay. If anybody listening right now wants to know more about you, wants to know specifically about how you help at Amtech, how can they get a hold of you?
LinkedIn, emails. Again, I think we'll be sharing my email, our website. I'm happy. I'm 24/7 US and Philippines all the time. And so happy to interact as much as possible and share the story, because I'm a big advocate for building outsourcing in anyone's organization.
Very good. And Jay, while I got you, I want to talk about the California staffing professionals as well. Had the opportunity to come out and not meet your team, but get to know your team a little better this year. I was also in San Diego last year for the annual conference. This year, Jay, I got to tell you, I said it on stage. I think I said it to you, friend. I did not know where I was going. It is hot in Palm Springs. I got off a plane in jeans and a t-shirt, and I think it was 114 degrees. I almost panicked. I went into full panic mode. And luckily I brought my shorts. I ended up changing for the conference. I brought a suit coat, and I was like, I can't wear this. It is a different animal out there.
Yes, it is. Desert life. And we can't predict, because I think it was a week earlier. It was like a perfect 90. Yeah. And it had to be the week of conference over 100. And I think heat wave all week long. And I was like, boy, this is going to be rough.
Yeah. It was a fun round of golf, I'll tell you that. I have never played in the elements, anything that hot. I've never had a score that was lower than the temperature. I can say that was certainly a first as well. But Jay, as president of CSP, I want to give you the floor. Why don't you talk a little bit about the association and the organization as a whole?
Yeah. Again, CSP, California Staffing Professionals, a state association, and an affiliate of ASA. California is a large state, and we've got a lot of legislation that is against staffing, right? We constantly are an advocate to helping California be a little bit more pro-business for staffing. And that's one of our biggest initiatives these last couple of years. And so one of that is, again, community, right? I think one of the biggest thing is community. Everyone is trying to be so nose to the ground in their business. We want to build community. I think, for me, the pie is big enough for everyone. No one here is, I own the state of California business. There is no conglomerate who just says, I run California. We're all mostly, independent staffing owners, and we're all trying to share ideas and best practices. I think that's the beauty of CSP. I think from a community base, I myself have learned so much. I think, I started Amtech as an intern and went to my first CSP conference and said, boy, one day I hope I could become a president of this and make some impact, because I learned a lot from all these people and knowledge sharing that other owners, other leaders showed me. Yeah. And I want to pay it forward and do that to the next generation of staffing leaders.
I've enjoyed myself at CSP. So again, I think this was my second year going. Hope to be out that way again next year. If y'all want me, I would certainly appreciate that.
Always.
I want to ask you this. What was your biggest takeaway from the annual conference?
Gosh, one of my favorites is, one of them was yours, because, you talk about marketing.
Thank you.
But I don't want to make this all about Brad, but I know one of our keynotes, Will Matthews, and I think this is in a time where the economy has been rough for staffing, right? People are down 20% over the last year, and that's rough. And, changing the narrative of yourself, right? I think that is hard to do right now, because people are questioning, am I good enough for this now? Am I not the leader in this next generation or new era of staffing? And I think people just stop and think, I love the pounding your chest and go, I'm going to be okay with this. I love, your work cry in a sense. I'm like, I love those things. Just shake it out of you, shake out those narratives in your head, especially as a business owner. I think everyone challenges yourself, because it's tough to be at the top sometimes. You're like, I'm the leader of an organization. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Kind of just making up as I go. And you're going to go, shoot, let's rethink this. Let's change the narrative and let's be what we want to be. What are we going to do differently? What am I going to do as myself going to be impactful to my team, to my customers, to the camp to serve? And I think that is a powerful message. And I think that's really hard to do in today's society right now, is to change the narrative of yourself. Yeah,
I am actually going to have Will on the show. I think we're going to drop your episode. I believe there's one more in the hopper, and then Will. But I wanted to bring him on to talk about setting that mindset as well. He was one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the conference as well. And what I really liked was he had mentioned how so many people go through life living in a balance of fear and self-doubt, in that we as individuals need to figure out how to reject that narrative, that we're almost wired to doubt ourselves instead of have the confidence in ourselves. And that was good to hear. I feel like I'm a pretty confident person, but I also have a hard time giving myself the okay to fail. And saying, listen, I'm going to try this. You might not get it right the first time is okay. And having that acceptance of you might fail, that's all right. That was my biggest takeaway from him. And also just a great guy to be around. I got to have breakfast with him. And then also had, I believe, a coffee after that a little bit later with him. Just a good guy to talk to. So I appreciate having him as well. My second time running into Will. He was in Colorado a few years back. I met him there as well. Really, really good guy.
Yeah, definitely. He's got great story. I love it. His the ability to tell a story and relate to his session is so powerful. I think that's the one. They're like, oh wow, I can relate to you so much more because of your story. Versus sometimes you have the keynote speakers who are just a little too much, right? Just too much data. And you lost me 10 minutes ago.
Right. If someone's listening right now and they're in California and they are considering CSP, why should they join? And if they want to, how can they get a hold of you, or how can they get a hold of your board? What do you want them to do?
Easiest, CSPnet.org. And that is pretty much if you even just questioning, I need to just share ideas. I need to know where California is. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. All of our board is on the website, our membership board. Any of our board is here to connect and talk about CSP and hear from you what you're trying to get out of it. Because I think that's the key is, an association we're a volunteers board and we're service oriented, right? This is we're as servant leaders. We're here to support you. You have an issue in legislation. If you need something on training, if you need just data, we're happy to share it. And we want you to build community around that. Because I think that's what people miss so much in this era of, hey, let's work from home and let's go Zoom all day. I think power of CSP is we're bringing in-person back pretty heavily. Lots of a blend of virtual, in-person stuff across California.
Any events or anything you want to plug before I let you go?
Yeah, we've got 2 events coming up. We have a women's leadership summit coming up here in September. Location is to be determined, but we also have our owners only conference coming up on November 5th, and that's really impactful. I think only owners, and this is where you get to just share ideas. It's an amazing opportunity to really build some friends and partnerships to just kind of go, hey, what's working, what's not working, and just vets to each other. It's one of the amazing events that we always have for owners.
Jay, before I let you go, I got to ask you our 2 rapid fire questions. And I almost forgot them because we went to CSP here. 2 rapid fires that I ask everybody on every episode of Take the Stage. You up for it?
Sure.
One piece of advice that you would give to somebody just starting in staffing and recruiting?
This is a great question. I think about it all the time because I'm like, sometimes you're like, what do I need to do better? I think in today's market, it goes, find out what you want to solve, right? As a staffing owner, if it's going to be about people, talent, if you find the community or the area that you feel it has a demand for talent, find that out, then spend the time recruiting talent first. I think people will chase clients first. And I think today everyone says, I'm going to go find you those people. I think the new era of staffing today is I have the talent who can fill your jobs, or my favorite is Mark Winters from Windsor says, I have the guy who can turn your machine on. I have the guy who's going to drill the hole for you. Yeah. That's what people are looking for today. And starting a staffing business, that focus on the talent, because we're in the biggest talent shortage and it's going to get bigger and bigger. That is the value you're going to bring to your customer base.
And question 2, one book that has fundamentally changed your life.
Scaling Up.
Good one.
That is a amazing book that showed me how to scale, because you used to, going from 5 people to 100. Yeah. When you're thinking of, I can just hire and hopefully this all works out. That book changed the philosophy of how you hire, what you need to have a repeatable system, and building that leadership and management to do so.
He's Jay Ramos, the president of Amtech and the president of the California Staffing Professionals. Jay, can't thank you enough for coming on and taking the stage with me.
Appreciate it, Brad. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you soon.